we tentatively have an agreement with Howard Dean to drop by the show, and it's a pretty busy day for him right now. At this moment, apparently, the AFL-CIO and SEIU are meeting to debate whether or not they should actively oppose, passively support, or actively support. That seems the least likely option, this new health care bill that has been put forward. And I'm suggesting that the bill should be killed altogether. This bill, which is going to require, now wrap your head around this for a minute, and just think about this. I was going to say as if you were Karl Rove. I realize putting yourself into the mind of a sociopath can be a very painful thing. Think of you as if you were a Republican strategist, and the Democrats hand you this gift, and this is a gift. They say, we're going to say to 30 to 45 million Americans, you must buy health insurance. And we're not going to give you a government program like Medicare that you can buy into with a 2% overhead. You're going to have to buy it from the gangsters in suits who right now insert themselves between you and your doctor, call themselves a health insurance industry with antitrust exemptions and multimillionaire salaries and private jets with gold-plated faucets in the restrooms and on and it goes. You're going to have to buy it from those gangsters. Now, if you're poor, we'll give you some money, but it's going to come out of everybody's taxes, and the middle class is going to say, what, you're raising my taxes to give money to these gangsters, the health insurance companies? And the Republicans are just, they're lying in wait. I tell you, they're lying in wait for this mandate. And this is not the fundamental change that we had been hoping for. This is not the fundamental change that, and frankly, I believe that there's a couple of reasons why it's not that fundamental change. Number one, I think that President Obama thinks that he can pull off what Bill Clinton did and what Ronald Reagan did and what George Herbert Walker Bush did and what to some extent George W. Bush did, which is prestidigitation, magic trick. We'll do the World Trade Organization and tell you that it's going to help American workers. Don't worry, it's going to help American workers. Just wait 5 years. Yeah, it didn't work. So, anyhow, Howard Dean is on the line with us, the former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, the former governor, six-term governor of, when I lived there, my state of Vermont, not my home state, but I lived there for a decade, and I was very, very proud to have Howard Dean as my governor, and one of the best governors that I've ever had the privilege of living in the state of, and a man that I wanted to see president of the United States when he was running for the United States for the presidency. By the way, his brother's organization, Democracy for America.com is the website. I don't know, Governor Dean, if there's any other sites you want it mentioned right now.
Oh, probably just the progressivebookclub.com. That'd be a good one to mention, as long as I'm mentioning great book websites. But thank you very much. You're good to be on.
Well, I'm very pleased that you could come here and speak with us, Governor. I
apologize for being late, too.
No, that's quite all right. I wrote an op-ed that's all over the internet yesterday. Wrote it, called "First They Came for the Banksters," pointing out that much like the health reform or the financial reform that Matt Taibbi has been writing about, we've basically been sold out on the health care reform, and this bill should be blown up. I'm curious, and I know that is very similar to your position. Let me let you riff on that for a moment.
Well, there are some good things in this bill. They do expand Medicaid. Bernie Sanders has got a great, significant expansion for community health centers. Tom Harkin's got a wellness and prevention piece in there. There's some good things in the bill. The problem is there's an enormous amount of bad things in the bill. Basically, it forces now every American to get health insurance, paying a health insurance company, which can take up to 30% of your premium dollars and spend them on things like $20 million CEO salaries and return on equity. And this This is what happened. This is so Washington. In the last week or two, everybody's desperate for a bill, so they throw caution to the winds. They forget why they're there, and they throw anything in the bill that can get a few votes. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of special interest folks, in Congress.
Let me ask you a question. I asked Jeff Merkley yesterday or the day before, and his response was, it's a good thing to dream, Thom, which was, it's like dream on, or a good thing to dream good dreams. But what if this thing goes down, and I mean, if the House Progressive Caucus keeps their word, it'll go down in the House, or it goes down in the Senate. What if this thing goes down, the whole thing collapses, and they say, okay, we've got to have a reconciliation. In my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the only thing that could really work with reconciliation is to say, okay, the entry age for Medicare is now 0. Everybody in America has Medicare coverage. Medicare will be paid for. The balance of that is going to be paid for out of the general fund. We're going to roll back the Reagan tax cuts to pay for it, and boom. And just, in the dead of night, overnight, really quickly, get that through, get an agreement in the House and the Senate, throw it through and get it passed and signed, because it's reconciliation. Get it passed with 51 votes before the Republicans have a chance to mount more tea parties, and get it on the desk of the president immediately, and boom, we join the rest of the developed world. Do you think there's even a remote possibility of something like that happening?
No, but it's not. But as Senator Merkley said, it's nice to dream. But there is a possibility that they could do that. You wouldn't go down to 0 with Medicare, and Senator Conrad, who has expressed some concerns about using Medicare, as the chairman of the Budget Committee, which that bill would have to go through. But that is a viable possibility, not to go down to 0, but to have Medicare as the base. Medicare makes much more sense as the base, and it's why I was so excited a couple of weeks ago when they started talking about this, because it's an existing bureaucracy. You can sign up people in a month after the president signed the bill. And the bill, as is now before the Senate, most people have to wait till they're 2014 to get any health insurance. And that, there's lots of problems with this bill as it now stands. But you could do that in theory. And in practice, your alternative is not a bad one. It wouldn't be quite as comprehensive as you just said. That's just not going to. There's not enough votes for that. But you could certainly do a lot more that's in the Senate bill, and a lot more that even was in the Senate bill when I thought it was worth passing.
Sir, in the 2 minutes we have.
And the other thing you could do, Thom, is you could just start all over again 2 years from now. This idea that no president's going to do this for 20 years if this fails is just not true. We're in a healthcare emergency in this country. This is going to have to get fixed.
Yes.
And I think the first time they've essentially failed. The second time, I think we could do better.
Yeah, hopefully. Although the Democrats might take a huge beating in the 2010 election as a consequence of this, and that's
going
to
happen no matter what they do.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, what do you think is going to happen next, Governor Dean?
I think it probably will pass the Senate. It'll go to conference committee, and then I think it's anybody's guess. But the same 4 senators who represent the insurance companies who vetoed the bill before could veto it again. So I don't see a whole lot of changes in the conference committee.
So your best guess is that the House is going to kill the bill?
Well, I don't know. That's a very good question. I think it'll be very, very close in the House.
Yeah. We live in interesting times, as the old Chinese curse goes.
We do indeed, but I think there's no point to sort of give up and throw up our hands. I do think we're going to get reform. I think we're going to get reform sooner than later. I think it's important for the reform to be good reform. It doesn't have to be perfect reform. I mean, Look, most of the left in America was willing to give up the single payer, even though they thought that was the best system. But what they're not willing to do is do a huge bailout at taxpayers' expense for the insurance companies. Right.
Well, it's not even a bailout because they're not in trouble. I mean, it's just a gift.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just it's a special interest gig. Special interests are not stupid in this town. They wait till the last minute till everybody's desperate. They get somebody like Lieberman or Ben Nelson or somebody to carry their water for them. And they're
off to the races.
And they're off to the races, and they usually get what they want. And this time it's time to say no.
Yeah. Governor Howard Dean, ProgressiveBookClub.com, DemocracyForAmerica.com. Governor, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on, Thom.
Great talking with you.